Good afternoon, friends, and thank you very much for coming for this event. As is usual, we will begin with opening statements by the two ministers. Following that, they've agreed to respond to a few questions. I will now request the External Affairs Minister of India, Shri Salman Khurshid, to make his opening remarks.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, Senator Bob Carr, Minister for Foreign Affairs and friends for the media. I've just had a very useful round of discussions with Senator Bob Carr, Foreign Minister of Australia. We held the 8th round of the framework dialogue between our two countries. The dialogue is an integral component of the strategic partnership between our countries, which was agreed by our Prime Ministers as way back as 2009. We've reviewed the entire range of our bilateral relations as well as regional and global issues. And we are pleased that our strategic partnership has grown in strength and expanded in scope. We also recognize that there are tremendous opportunities for much greater cooperation. We shall strive to attain all of them. Our relations are based on shared interests and mutual benefit in political and security areas, our expanding economic and trade ties, our cooperation in energy and resource sectors, extremely important for India, collaboration in science and technology and research, and our meaningfully growing people-to-people links. The state visit of the Australian Prime Minister, Julia Gillard, to India last year was a landmark in our strategic partnership, during which a number of agreements were signed and several new initiatives were launched. Senator Carr and I have reviewed the progress in the implementation of those decisions. We are satisfied with the scope and extent of progress made in various areas, and we have strengthened our collaborative endeavors in several sectors and have opened up new areas of cooperation. We held the first ministerial level energy dialogue led by the Deputy Chairman of Planning Commission and the Australian Minister for Energy in December 2012. We shall be commencing negotiations on civil nuclear energy cooperation agreement led by our Ministry of External Affairs and the Australian Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade in March 2013 in New Delhi. Our cooperation in water resources has expanded, and the water technology partnership will take concrete shape in the next joint working group in April 2013, and negotiations for the transfer of sentenced persons will commence shortly. High-level, ministerial-level exchanges have taken place in several areas. We shall soon be hosting the joint commission between our Minister for Commerce and Industries and the Australian Trade Minister, which will give impetus to our trade relations, currently at $21 billion. Our trade negotiators have been engaged in broadening understanding towards a mutually beneficial CCAR. Investments in Australia have grown significantly in recent years, particularly in the resources sector. We have welcomed the Australian side to invest in the opportunities in India, and our Defence Minister will be visiting Australia soon for further discussions on cooperation in defence and security. We highly value our cooperation in science technology. Our scientists have been working together on research projects that address the needs of the people as well as frontier areas of science. We are pleased with our cooperation in the education sector, which has been expanded by the inclusion of specific programs on vocational skills and establishment of such centers in India, as has also been given a stronger structure through close collaboration between governments in addressing the needs of student community in Australia, both in terms of curriculum, quality, as well as safety issues. On the regional and global issues, we have strengthened our cooperation and consultation. We recognize the importance of regional cooperation in the Indian Ocean region. Iraq, which has acquired a new momentum during our chairmanship, will continue the positive movement as Australia assumes the chair for the next 2 years. We have collaborated closely on our cooperative agenda with ASEAN and the East Asia Summit. We look forward to working closely with Brunei, the new ASEAN chair, in this effort. Similar cooperation is has also furthered our objectives in Assam and in G20. Australia will host the G20 summit in 2014, and we look forward to close collaboration and consultation on global economic issues. We welcome Australia's role at the UN Security Council. Our people-to-people exchanges have been intensified through closer cooperation on cultural, academic, sporting, and other links, which have broadened our relationship and deepened our understanding of each other. I wish to congratulate Australia for hosting the Ozfest, which has brought our people closer. Our bilateral relations have shown steady progress over time, with consolidation of our strategic partnership through expansion and deepening of cooperation in various sectors. We will continue to build upon these and also in new areas of cooperation. We shall play our due role in transformations taking place in our region and be responsible partners in the emerging regional architecture. And I thank the Minister for very, very meaningful interaction.
Thank you, Minister. It's a great honour to be here. The focus of our talks, as you said, was on maintaining the momentum in the relationship between Australia and India following the successful visit to India by Prime Minister Gillard in October last year. India is a key part of Australia's future, and our recent strategic document, Australia in the Asian Century, identified the relationship with India as being of crucial importance to Australia. I said to the Minister, this is supported by Australian public opinion. Australian public opinion wants to see India and Australia get closer, and this is underpinned by our common values: democracy, secular government, strong judicial systems, a robust freedom of expression, and a shared interest in cricket. This is part of the dialogue between our countries that works so well, but we want to add momentum to the progress signalled by our Prime Minister's visit in October last year. And in that spirit, I'm pleased that the announcement we're able to make today on the opening of talks on civil nuclear cooperation can be done. I'm delighted that to say the first round of negotiations on that cooperation agreement will take place in Delhi in March. I'm pleased that we've been able to agree on work together on shared security challenges, including joint efforts to combat terrorism, with Australia hosting the next meeting of the joint working group we have on combating terrorism. We agreed on an expanded bilateral dialogue on cyber policy. We discussed maritime security in the Indian Ocean, and I welcome the forthcoming visit to Australia by Defence Minister Anthony, which will be the first ever by an Indian Defence Minister to Australia. So again, that's confirmation of how we're working more closely than ever in the past. As two leading democracies in the region, we want to do more to encourage engagement between our elected representatives, and we've agreed to revitalise engagement between our parliaments. As a first step, Australia will host a goodwill delegation of Indian MPs in February this year. I'm delighted to announce the first phase of the water technology partnership today, with Australia committing a total of $12 million over 4 years. As a first step, we'll pilot an Australian water management tool in 3 states in eastern India. We'll also help improve flood warning systems and flood management in the Koshi River Basin and host a delegation to Australia to study our systems in the Murray-Darling Basin. We're a nation that suffers drought. We have an erratic rainfall pattern of necessity. We've had to learn some expertise in water management. We want to share what we have learnt. We reaffirmed our mutual commitment to strengthen the East Asia Summit, and we agreed we'd continue to cooperate closely in the G20, particularly in the lead up to Australia's chairmanship in 2014. Australia will host the next IRAC Council of Ministers meeting in Perth in November, when we take over as chair from India. Our Minister for Trade will visit India later this month to advance our comprehensive economic cooperation agreement, the negotiations. We agreed to work towards a date in 2013 for the next round of the negotiations on a social security agreement. So our discussions were broad, they were fruitful. We reaffirmed that our interest, both economic and strategic, are converging in a way they've never done before. Australia and India are getting closer and strategic partners. Minister, thank you.
The two ministers have agreed to take a few questions. The first question is from Sagar Kulkarni, PTI.
The question is to the Indian Foreign Minister. So you said the civil nuclear negotiations will begin in March this year. Have you set any time frame for the talks to conclude?
Well, I don't need to see the sense of urgency and commitment between us is very clear, and I think that these are very important negotiations. Of course, we've done negotiations with other countries successfully on this, so there is a backdrop available, and there are models available, but Australia has had a very significant contribution to make in the field of nuclear energy and on non-proliferation, and I think therefore when we speak on a matter of such high import, to actually put an artificial deadline and say we must complete it as quickly as within this period would not be appropriate, but obviously a sense of urgency and purpose will be there, and hopefully we will move quite swiftly.
Amanda Hodges, the Australian.
This is to both ministers. I'm interested in the potential resumption of the trilateral or quadrilateral talks. There was some mention of that by the Japanese Prime Minister some weeks ago, that he was the architect of those talks a while ago between America, Japan, India and Australia. You mentioned that that your talks today touched on regional issues, Indo-Pacific, South China Sea issues. Is there a chance that Australia and India will participate once again in quadrilaterals or trilaterals that will deal specifically with these regional security issues?
I met my counterpart, the Japanese Foreign Minister, Minister Kishida, in Sydney the weekend before last, and he didn't raise this. When it comes to a trilateral involving Japan, India and Australia, it remains hypothetical. We'd welcome discussions, separate discussions, which with Japan, but there's no formal proposal for a trilateral. It wasn't an issue where we discussed today, so it remains a hypothetical possibility. The quadrilateral, it's probably fair to say, is even more ambitious than that, and again, clearly hypothetical.
Well, I would have given you the same answer, and I think that Australia and India are on the same page, and every time you move beyond bilateral to something that is trilateral, quadrilateral or multilateral, you look at many implications, and you look at the content and the context, and then you take a decision as you move. But the issues that you mentioned are already being looked at in various fora, and a stated position of freedom of navigation on open seas is the same between Australia and ourselves, that the law of the sea must prevail, and I think this has been reiterated many times over. But wherever there are specific agenda issues, they are being handled there, I believe, adequately, and there isn't today. We weren't called upon to move this any further. But broadly speaking, we are both on the same page.
Stephanie from ABC.
Senator Carr, and it's on an issue going on elsewhere. What's your advice to Australians in Algeria, and what's the risk for Australians working in the mining industry in Africa? And would Australia consider deploying any assistance if extremists threatened any Australian mining interests in the region?
Well, Australia has huge mining interests in Africa. I think the figure is about $50 billion in investment in the ground or being planned. In fact, we have an annual conference called Africa Down Under, held in Perth every year, where mining ministers and mining officials from Africa come to Australia to talk about collaboration on mining. Clearly we are concerned, following what happened in Algeria, for the safety of Australian personnel in mines in Mali, where there's at least one, and elsewhere in the Sahel. When I went to Algeria last year, I was able to talk about the prospect of more mining collaboration with Algeria. It's good for them, it's good for us. What we're seeing here is the mining boom in Australia creating opportunities for Australian expertise and Australian capital in Africa, bringing jobs and investment to countries that desperately need it, and bringing opportunities for Australian-based companies. The Australian mining boom spilling over into Africa. So naturally we're very concerned at the prospect of extremist threats in the Sahel or in West Africa that could conceivably target Australian investments. I'll speak to our French colleagues, I'll speak further to our British friends about how they assess the threat to their mining interests in that part of the world, and we'll consider further what advice can be given to Australians.
Last question, Vishal Thapar, NewsX.
My question is for Mr. Salman Khurshid. Sir, the Pakistan High Commissioner to India has described the beheading of the Indian soldier as India's domestic issue. He has also criticized Prime Minister Manmohan Singh's statement that there can be no business as usual with Pakistan under the circumstances. What is your view on this? And also, have you taken a view on the offer of talks at the foreign minister's level?
Well, clearly, there wasn't, it can't be described as an offer. I think there was suggestions on how to move forward, and the possibility that it could be done in one way or the other. And of course, that's a suggestion that came through the media, and we have already said that we believe moving from any attempt to suggest third-party intervention and moving from that to a bilateral interface is a positive signal. The fact that things have been quiet on the line of control, the fact that our DGMOs have been in touch in a meaningful way, I would believe that this all signifies a welcome shift in the right direction. But these are matters where the entire atmospherics and the entire context needs to be carefully studied, analyzed from time to time before any further steps are taken. I would just simply say that we shouldn't necessarily react to every statement. And I don't think that every statement made in domestic context should necessarily be treated as the last word. It's important that we let little time go by so that the dust, as it were, settles, and then in a sensible and a calibrated manner, one can move forward. For the present, I believe the situation looks a lot better than it did a few days ago.
Thank you very much. With that, we come to the end of this event.
Thank you.
So, you want another picture? You want another picture? Okay. did a easy job. Right, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much.